We would like to welcome you to the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce Forum for candidates seeking the office of New Iberia Council Member at Large. I'm Madison Saunier, your moderator for tonight's forum. Tonight's forum is hosted by the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce, and we are grateful for the sponsorship of Iberia Comprehensive Community Healthcare Center and the partnership with Leadership Iberia, which I am a proud alumni of Class 20. Tonight's program is purely informational. Neither the Chamber, Iberia Comprehensive Community Healthcare Center, nor the Leadership Iberia program endorses any particular candidate running for office. There are a few announcements before we begin this evening's program. Our sponsors wish to remind you that the deadline to register to vote in person or by mail is October 5th. The deadline to register to vote through GoVote online registration system is October 13th. And early voting is October 16th through the 27th, excluding both the Sundays. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Tonight's forum will be posted to the Chamber of Commerce's website at iberiachamber.org. At this time, I would like to introduce the candidates. All candidates in this race were invited to participate. Those in attendance tonight are Mr. Ricky Gonsalin, Mr. David Merrill, Mr. Paul Shakesnyder. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for an opening statement. We will then ask a series of questions of which the allotted time to answer will vary, but I will let you know your time for each question. To assist the candidates in keeping time, we have a timekeeper situated down front. As far as timing, please refer to the monitor next to the podium that will have the countdown of your time for each question. All the questions I will ask tonight were predetermined. Questions were solicited from the public, and then an independent panel reviewed the questions submitted and came up with those that are to be asked tonight. All questions have been kept in strict confidence, and no one except for a very small group of core panel members and I have seen them. At this time, we will start with opening statements. Earlier, we drew for a starting order, and we will start with Mr. Paul Shakesnyder and continue with Mr. Ricky Gonsalin and then Mr. David Merrill. We will attempt to continue that rotation, alternating who starts with each round of questions. Mr. Paul, would you start with your opening statement?
All right. Well, thank you to the Chamber for sponsoring this forum tonight. I was born and raised here, and I got my love for New Iberia from my parents, Gordon and Mary Shakesnyder. They taught me how to listen, how to share, and they both gave me my passion for community involvement. Vision and action is what I will bring to the office of Mayor Pro Tem. I love ideas. I love listening to individuals and groups. Brainstorming, planning, developing achievable goals is key to our growth. I have no political agenda, but I do have over 25 years of experience volunteering and creating new projects for the community. I get excited about these projects and how they can benefit the city. And I always think how we can get new people involved in them, because it's a great way to develop pride for your community. And when you have pride in the community, good little things start to happen. You know, one street, one house, one neighborhood at a time. And that's the vision I see, and that's the role that I want to play. So as a business owner, teacher, artist, and contributing citizen of New Iberia, my experience and my fresh new ideas and perspective will bring to the office of Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Ricky?
Yes, I would also like to thank the Chamber and all sponsoring parties for this event. This is truly important to the general public and make us available for comments. My name is Ricky Gonsalin, and I'm running for Member at Large Mayor Pro Tem. I'm married to Ronnie Lane Booty Gonsalin. I have 3 children, Ridge, Rhett, and Riley. Ridge and Rhett both graduated with BSs and are now employed by Gonsalin Farms LLC and employed by the family farm. My daughter Riley graduated from UL Nursing, and she's an RN at Iberia General on the emergency room floor. Very proud of the kids to come back to the community and worked hard. I graduated from Nish in 1985, UL with a bachelor's degree in 1990. I'm a graduate of Iberia Leadership and also Ag Leadership Development from LSU. I'm a lector and a Eucharistic minister at St. Peter's Church, Iberia Parish Farm Bureau President, currently for the last 10 years. I'm also the American Sugarcane League State Legislative Chairman. I own Gonsalin Farms LLC, Gonsalin Holdings LLC, 5R Holdings LLC, all located in New Iberia, and proud to say that. You know, I was born and raised in New Iberia, and it brought a lot for me. It provided a home for my kids to go to school, a church to worship. It provided a place for me to house my businesses. It also provided me the opportunity to volunteer for the great people in this community, and I want to continue doing that as I serve for your next Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Rick. Ms. David?
Yes, I'd like to also thank the Chamber as well for allowing me to come up here and to announce my candidacy and be among these two men who contributed to the community. Me, I was a city councilman for 8 years. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. My mother was from here, from Avery Island. My grandparents were Nancy and James Russell. My grandfather was a caretaker for Miss Polly in the Jungle Gardens, and my grandmother was a head cook for Miss Simmons. They were well known by everybody on Avery Island. We moved here when I was 10 years old. My mother left my dad, brought us here. I was raised by my uncles and aunts here. One of my uncles, Bill's Hair Fashion, Bill Russell. My other uncle was assistant superintendent for school board for Iberia Parish. So I had a lot of my uncles and aunts that contributed to us raising. I moved up further and I graduated from this in '77, half a day, half a year. I went in the military and I did 4 years in the National Guard. Came back home, went to college. I went to UNO, University of New Orleans. Came back and then was working. Ended up getting laid off from my job or something. I went back and I went to the United States Navy. Did a couple of years in the Navy and got out on a medical discharge for asthma and came home. I eventually started doing what I can as far as being in the sales industry. And I've been in the sales industry for years. Started out with clothing, went to jewelry. Now I'm in the car business, sales and assistant manager at Musson Patu, been there 23 years. I also opened my own clothing store in 2010 up until 2014, which Mr. Worms has helped me out a lot because he was closing. I just thank everybody for allowing me to be here.
Oh, thank you, Ms. David.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, so the first question will go to Mr. Ricky. You'll have 90 seconds for this question. Why are you running for the office of council member at large? What are some specifics about you or your background that make you the best candidate for this office?
Okay, thanks for the question. It's a great question because as a public servant already for 8 years on the parish council, I served 2 terms on the parish council, served as chairman, vice chairman, finance chairman. So I have the experience to serve as mayor pro tem. I'm compelled to serve in the public because I immensely enjoy that and I want to contribute back to the community. I have the experience to be a successful mayor pro tem and intend to use that experience to leverage it to have a better community. I also want to be a stakeholder in the progress of this community as it moves forward, because if we don't become stakeholders in our own community, we can't expect better things for us. You know, we all love New Iberia, we all want to raise our families here, and I love New Iberia as well. But we have to make it a better place to provide for our kids to grow up, work, live, and thrive here. And it's going to have some tough decisions ahead of us, but I'm up for the challenge, and I want to address those needs, and I'll get my hands dirty and work hard to be your next mayor pro tem.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. David?
Yes, I also too have the experience. I did 2 terms, 8 years. Before that, I was on the Civil Service Board. I now serve as a representative representing the medical and behavior services for the kids for Iberia Parish on the Acadiana Human Service District Board, recommended by Fred Mills, appointed by the governor of Louisiana. I also want to see more in New Iberia. I want to diversify this town a lot more. I've been knocking on doors and talking to a lot of people, and people of any race or color were nodding their heads to what I was telling them because they know this town needs to be diversified a lot more, especially with the protests and things that's going on in our community. I have been in this community working hard throughout being a mentor in the community. I was in a buddy program for 16 years. We can't do it this year because of the coronavirus, but I'm totally involved in my community. And I'm doing things that I don't have to do, but I want to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Paul?
All right, well, I mean, really, the honest answer is I was asked to run and to think about it. And I thought about it, I prayed about it, talked to my family, and I just couldn't shake it. So I really wanted to see what I could do on a larger level. You know, I've been involved with the community for, like I said, over 25 years, starting with creating the Bayou Teche Museum, working with groups, to just recently the George Rodriguez Park, which is on its 2nd phase right now. And you know, working with people, putting together plans and making achievable goals that are fiscally responsible, you know, is key. You know, and I think in this climate now of our world, I think it's going to take somebody who has a different perspective at looking at issues, maybe a different ideas, fresh ideas, not the same old thing, and I think I can do that. As a teacher, I'm a traveling art teacher throughout the parish. And so when we could go to school, that's what I would do. So, I mean, I have a wide array of different schools throughout the parish or throughout the city that I've seen, different people, communities, neighborhoods, and I think I can pull that all together so we can have an achievable goal to have some constant growth in New Iberia.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. So, Ms. David, this will be
Yes.
your question. You'll be the first one to answer. You have 90 seconds. What are the 3 biggest issues facing the city of New Iberia in the next 4 years, and your thoughts on the prioritization of each?
Okay, I think that the 3 that I look at is a lot of our community members leaving from New Iberia and transferring to Lafayette and Broussard. And a lot of it is because of the lack of businesses here. And I think that's what's drawing a lot of people away from the town. And another thing I think is also our young people. Our young people don't have nothing here for them to keep them here, to be able to diversify themselves, to be able to make a good living here. We need to move more in the technical industry where a lot of young people can verify who they are and stay here and not have to move to other cities. And another thing too is adversing the crime in our community. I think we all need to come together as a people. I don't care if you go to Catholic Church, Baptist Church, it doesn't matter. If we don't come together as a people and diversify together, we can't come together to make this community what it should be. And we all one people. And if we don't do that, then you're looking at the situation getting a lot worse, especially for the young people that's coming up. So what I want to do is set the precedents and this platform for the young people so they can know what they need to do to move forward in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Paul.
All right, I think infrastructure as well as economic growth are 2 big issues that we have to address. A third one could be tourism. And, I have a tourism plan that I think we need to incorporate into the city of New Iberia. I've been on the Parish Tourism Commission the past, years ago it was, but I was a volunteer there for 4 years. And, look at doing things like the museum, the park, and, all the natural talent and beauty that we have here. I think we need to really be able to tell our story of New Iberia and really go after and make New Iberia a tourist destination. That would bring in fresh new dollars into the city. That would help with the infrastructure, sewage that we have to do. I know there's lots of big major overhaul, coming to some neighborhoods next year. Also, our roads are awful, a lot of them. I kind of keep a top 10 list of the worst roads in New Iberia. Those fresh dollars would help pay for that. With our tourism, before we can invite people to come visit us, we really need to set the table, clean house. We need, to attack our litter problem, our beautification, our gateways into the city. We need safe, a safe community. We need new signage. There's some problems, but I'm up for the challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Ms. Ricky.
Yes, I think, 3 top issues is really a short list. I think we need to focus on all the problems. But my priorities will be rooted in the budget and infrastructure. I think the budget is so important to any community. If I say a few numbers like 56.8 million, 17.8 million, 7.6 million, 5.6, 3 million, probably wouldn't make any sense to anybody. But what that means is our net position for the parish at the 2019 audit is 56.6 million. We spent on public safety right at 14.6 million. Our public works is 7.8, wastewater 5.6, and we ended up, the current administration and council ended up with a $3 million surplus. So that tells me they are practicing fiscal responsibility, and I want to be a part of that. I'm an opponent of increasing your revenue by safe budgeting. When we can do that, we can provide services, more services, without increasing taxes. The next thing we do is the infrastructure. You heard it last night, you hear it tonight, but everybody says infrastructure and roads, but how do we fix it? If you pay attention, currently, the administration is looking at rebonding some issues that will be able to refinance roads in the near future and start that project. We also need to look at public-private partnerships. The third thing is our crime. We need to keep investing in our police department to bring the crime rate down, because businesses and rooftops that want to locate here pay attention to crimes in schools and healthcare. So we have a lot of issues to address, but if we start at the top with the budget and the infrastructure, other things will fall in place, such as tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. Paul, you'll have 180 seconds for this question. Often we hear the comment that New Iberia will not support its own businesses. Where will this city's prosperity come from? What are some specific things city government can do to promote economic development in the city to encourage the establishment of new businesses or industries, or to promote residential housing development?
Yeah, I think that if we want new business in here, a lot of times we want to give them incentives, which is great. But, if we're going to do that, I think we also need to look at our current businesses and what kind of incentives can we give them, because we want them to stay here. We want to shop local. What's interesting is, during this whole COVID time, is that our tax base is pretty good. We have a surplus, and it's because everybody was what? They were home, and if they were shopping local, and we need to keep doing that. I mean, it's really, really important. Our city is not suffering like many because of that. And so I really hope that we can continue to do that. Like I said before, my tourism plan would bring in fresh dollars for that. Hopefully, we do have a plan right now. The city does have a plan, and it could probably use some better marketing, but retirement home place for elderly people or that want to move here is a great idea. But I think that one aspect that we have is our bayou, that we don't really do a lot of activities on. And I think it's one way that we can, it's called Aqua Tourism. And that is just water-based activities that we can really market, because not too many communities are doing that right now. I think we can stand out with that marketing plan and get fresh, new dollars into our tax base, and that would just help everything. Like we talked about, the infrastructure, the roads, and certainly our police department. Our police department is not fully staffed right now. We need, the second half of them. We also need a community liaisons. That would be a great person to fund for our police department in our city. So I think if we can get fresh new dollars into the city, as well as new businesses, if we have a tourism and we are a destination, we need to educate the people on, hey, you know what, our guests are coming. You need to learn how to treat them maybe a little better. We need to learn about signage. We need to learn about that attraction. What are the hours? We need to kind of rethink about all that stuff and say, hey, we need to treat these people right. We need to welcome them, and we need them, give them a place to go, to do, to eat. There are a lot of things that we want and we need here. And by working with the council, the council has a master plan that is coming next year, and it was information from all the districts, and I want to be part of that and maybe leading that charge for us.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
Thank you.
Mr. Ricky.
Yeah, I think all these facts that we're talking about in recent questions are very true. But economic development, as a mayor pro tem or city council, we're on the front lines. We need to seize and grab every opportunity we can to make this city and this parish better. We need to be in unison with the parish on the assets the parish has as well as the city to leverage our opportunities to create business development. Far too often when you hear about people leaving this town or what are they leaving for, well, crime, one thing, and I address that. We need to continue to pour money in our police department and address the community policing so we can bring our crime rate down. Yes, it's a long-term deal, but we need to address it and keep addressing it. And the city and the police department is doing a good job. But from an economic development standpoint, you're looking at infrastructure, which we talked about, trying to research and finding a way to start redoing some of these roads so that we can attract new businesses. The first thing businesses want, they want a new road. We're really lacking new resources on residential rooftops. We need to see where we can address residential rooftops because that brings tax dollars into our community. At the same time, people aren't aware during COVID-19 that tourism in this parish ceased to exist, but yet we had a surplus. And why? Because our businesses strived, worked hard, and contributed to our sales tax the Lowe's, the Rouses. All these people contributed and created a sales tax base that we can survive on. So that tells you that we need to treat our retail dealers with pride. We need to clear out any government hurdles that they have so they can cease to move forward and prosper in their business. At the same time, we need to look for places for our kids to go to work. That only comes with bringing companies down here that create jobs and infrastructure. We have to go out and sell our parish. Not just sit in the courthouse and make rules and regulations and try to develop issues that aren't existent. Go out and talk to these businesses, sell them, bring them back to town, show them what we have to offer, show them the culture we have, and show them that we can put people to work. We can drive this economy through businesses. I think we need to keep promoting our parish and keep developing the issues that we're strong on. At the same time, look for new opportunities that we can go out and grab and be sure we pay attention to them.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. David.
Yes, I want to backpack on what Ricky said. One thing is, too, with our infrastructure, we do need roads taken care of here. I was on the council. We had a lot of roads done in my district, and a lot of it came from us taking time to get grant money and everything to do these roads. I was part of putting a light on Jefferson Terrace and also sidewalks all the way to Main Street. You know, those kids that coming from Nish, I've been to a lot of cities, I've traveled, and you can't go to no major city where you can see they don't have sidewalks outside of a major street where kids are coming out of school. Those things needed to be done. But a lot of other things need to be done too, is we need restaurants here that's gonna benefit people that are family restaurants. We get a lot of fast food restaurants here that don't last. One of them, which me and my cousin live in Atlanta, we talked about, and I'm not gonna say the name, but we knew by Christmas it was gonna be gone. And we were exactly right about that. You have a lot of seafood restaurants here that's doing very well, Seafood Connection and other places. They don't need restaurants that's having fake food when we got places here where people enjoy eating real seafood from places that's giving them convenience. Another thing we need is recreation for these kids. I talk to a lot of people in this community. Every time you do something with your grandkids or kids, you gotta go to Lafayette. That's ridiculous. There's no PlayStations, there's nothing here anymore like they used to have when I was young. No go-kart ranches, nothing. If somebody would come here and open up a place for kids to be able to have fun here, that would bring a lot to our community right here, and it would take some of the revenues from Lafayette that we're putting back into them. We send a lot of people to Lafayette because of the fact that we don't have a lot of things here to benefit the people here. Another thing too is we need to have a museum here too. I've talked to a lot of people of color that have a lot of intention to want to see more people of color that have committed themselves to making things happen in New Iberia, and also people that can see the people that's of color that has contributed to New Iberia. We've done a lot of stuff on Main Street, but a lot of people of color are feeling like they're not being recognized for those things as well. So we need to be able to incorporate everybody into what we do so we can make everybody feel comfortable about whatever culture or ethnic group they was raised under. And I think if we get together and do that, we can have a lot better place for us to live and communicate with one another. And the police department is doing a great job, but we need to make the police be going out in the communities and talking to people like they did a long time ago. Community policing is very important because they're going to give you the answers and the questions to where they can find this person or that person at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Ricky, this will be your question to start with. You're going to have 60 seconds. Money is tight. How do you anticipate helping to create efficiencies in government to stretch limited tax dollars?
That's a good question because money's tight in every fashion of government. And when I was on the parish council as finance chair, we ended up balancing budget by making cuts. And you have to look internally at your internal government and see which departments are top heavy and where you can make the logistical cuts that make the least amount of impact on your constituents. We always want to provide the best amount of, or the most amount of services and the most quality amount of services to our constituents with the least amount of tax dollars. So by addressing the budget and keeping a fine eye on it and understanding exactly what the budget goes to, we can nitpick through that budget and find some areas that we can reduce. I mean, the council at the last meeting just authorized $100,000 to blighted property. That was $60,000 a year before. They saw an opportunity to increase it. There's areas that we can cut and make sacrifices, but the most detrimental areas to the budget we have to maintain to provide our services, essential services to our constituents.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. David?
One thing Ricky said is true. I was on the council. At one time, we had an $800,000 deficit. Then another time we had the recreation department got audited, and a lot of it came from the budgets not being manufactured like they were. And then we came up with a situation to whereas before the meetings, we would meet with each director a couple of times during the month so we can kind of, make sure and look at their budgets before it get out of hand. If our budgets are not correct, we're not going to be able to move into areas where we can save this money Ricky is talking about. We have to make sure that our budgets are on time, and every budget that is meant timely and in fashion with everything that we're doing. And if we do it that way, then we can move forward. The city budget is not that easy like a lot of people think. A lot of people watch these meetings on TV, but when you're actually sitting up there and watching what's going on and seeing the cuts here and there and seeing we don't have enough money to tear houses down and stuff like that, then people in the community are looking at us and saying, well, okay, what you doing?
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Paul?
I think you have to look at the budget maybe from fresh eyes, look at how you combine certain things, how you can, cut here, put a little money in here and see what sort of savings we can save. I looked at the audit and the city just had a great audit. And we know we had a surplus. So I think all the departments are doing great. And I think, you really need to look at one by one, and it takes a long time to go through those budgets and those meetings. But, that's the time that you have to spend the time to go ahead and do that. You also have to think about whatever you cut, whatever you do, it's people, it's programming. And I hope when we do look at that budget, I hope that is in the back of people's mind that, what can we do to save it? It's just a different way of looking at it, fresh new eyes.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. David, this will be your question. You'll have
Yes.
60 seconds.
Okay.
Over the past few years, there's been a lot of talk about regionalism. Do you think New Iberia would benefit more or less by engagement in regional initiatives, and why?
Well, that's kind of a tricky question. I think they would, but then it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. We'd have to have a program in place to be able to make those things happen. And if we don't have a program in place, it's going to be hard for us to regionalize like that, And I think we can do it though, but we'd all have to come together and be on the same page with how we're going to do it and how we move forward doing it, and have everybody working on the same page to try to make it work and see how it works in at least the next 6 months, and then we can go further and increase it and make it the way it should be. Thank you.
Mr. David. Mr. Paul?
All depends. It depends on the situation. It depends on who's sponsoring it, because, is it to their benefit or is it going to be to everybody's benefit? There've been lots of programs out there that are still happening that I feel like New Iberia gets slighted a lot of the times. One example, and this is just a personal thing, but Acadiana Arts Council, they didn't have any representative from New Iberia for years. I was the first one that got on that board, and I fought for, getting those grant dollars for New Iberia and the parish. And so I think you have to look at, depending on what it is, what's their mission, what's their goal, and then instead of just the council looking at it, you got to give it to the chamber. You got to give it to IDF. You got to give it to a lot of brilliant minds, a lot of business people, and see if it's really going to benefit the city.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Ricky?
Yeah, I think, the regional approach is a big issue, and this is where some of my experience pays off as a parish councilman, because we address the regional issue through drainage, through multiple parishes, and it has a huge impact, a positive impact on drainage throughout the city and the parish by using all entities involved. But again, it depends on the particular situation that you're in and what you can benefit and what it's going to cost you down the road. Regionalism needs to be studied hard, it needs to be looked at, it needs to be talked about intelligently. There are opportunities out there that we can benefit from it, but we do not want to put our city in a position where we can't benefit from it and it costs us more down the road. But let's look at each obstacle that they want to regionalize and see if it truly can benefit from that program. And there's a lot out there that we can, but there's some that could be detrimental to our city because we're the smaller ones and we'll be the smaller one in a big area. So we want to make sure that we study it be proactive in our approach, and make sure that it benefits the taxpayers of this city.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. Paul, this will be your question to start with. You have 90 seconds. This is your chance to speak on some issues that has not been raised tonight or that you want to address, or a chance to offer more comments about that you think deserves more attention.
Okay. Let's see. You know, a lot of people, when I'm walking the neighborhoods, and a lot of my students, they want to know what a mayor pro tem does. And a mayor pro tem is a council person. They have a vote. But instead of just one district, they're over the whole city, right? It's a citywide position. And then, you know, if the mayor cannot run a meeting or something, then you step up and do that. If some unfortunate thing that the mayor is no longer, then you step in. And it's a temporary position. You know, a special election is held. And, you know, am I ready for that? Sure. Because the city department heads run the city. I know that the mayor does day-to-day stuff, but he doesn't actually sit in those computers and doing the work. And we have great department heads. And that city, you know, the city is well run. And so, you know, I try to tell people that, you know, it's a big job. And I think it's tailor-built for me because I'm someone that really wants to get their hands dirty and do the work. I want to, you know, get those ideas, plan them, and actually go and do it.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Ricky.
Yeah, I think it's, as we, you know, visit with people in the area and talk to people, and they're really not fully understanding what the pro tem position really is. And if you look at it, what it's designed to do, and you represent the whole city, it is designed to have a vote as any other council member, but it's also designed to replace the mayor in any given situation that may not be for acting towards the council. And I think we got to trust that person who has the experience to step in. If you look at my track record on the parish council voting, you know, as finance chairman, chairman, vice chairman, I've made the tough votes in the parish. I've made the hard decisions to balance the budget. I made those decisions during hurricanes to do things that were necessary. It takes somebody with due diligence and experience to step in and make the right decisions. I'm up for that challenge. I'm willing for that challenge, and I'll work hard towards that challenge. But we surely need to make it well known that we need to elect the most experienced person, because if something does happen to the mayor, we need to be assured that we can continue to move this city forward and making progress.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mr. David.
I agree with what Mr. Ricky said about experience. Experience is a big factor in it, but experience is not the main thing that makes you run the city or be a mayor pro temp or a mayor. You have to connect yourself with the community. I've been knocking on a lot of doors, and I've been talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people are not comfortable with politics. A lot of people are not comfortable with politicians. But I always revert myself to let people know I am not a politician. And I said it when I was on the council, I am a servant. And a servant is different to me than a politician. I serve the people. And when you serve the people, you're not a person that just want to be involved in politics, and just because this person you're hanging with got a lot of money, they trying to get you to do this and do that for them. I serve the people. And by serving the people, it means connecting with the community. I connect with the community all over, on my job on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter who they are, but I take care of my community. And experience makes a big difference. But people have to feel comfortable about who you are and feel that you're going to take care of their issues.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Ricky, this will be your question for 60 seconds. I just want to say, y'all some like wonderful men. I think y'all have great ideas, but this is your question. Here's your chance to direct a question to one or both of your opponents. Do you have any questions you would like to pose?
Directly to my opponents?
Yes.
Sure. You know, in the case of a budget pitfall in the city, what would be your most obvious choices to correct that problem, to continue to move this city forward?
Are you directing to both of them?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll go left to right. So, Mr. David, you'll go first.
Okay, to keep this city moving forward, what I would do is, first I would have an all-out meeting planned with all the city council and the mayor and also the directors of each department, and see where our problems are, what we fell short at, and what we can do to achieve to make things better and get everybody's idea. Because when you're working as a council, it's not just about me, it's about everybody. And for us to make the budget a lot better and for us to not make the mistakes that can put us into that downfall, we all have to listen to each other to bring the ideas necessary to make those changes.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that, instead of you see the pitfall, you might have seen it coming for a while and you'd want to address it before that. But yeah, I mean, you need to get the whole council together. You have an emergency meeting, say, and you address it. You come up with different ways on how you can structure certain things, change certain things. But I would think that you would probably see something like that coming, and I'd want to address it before it happens.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you for that question, Ms. Ricky. Mr. David?
Yes.
You want to reread the question? You get to ask.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I would like to say, well, let's say, for example, entertainment in New Iberia. I would like to ask each person what you think as far as us getting involved with. This was an idea I thought about. Going to Lafayette, because Lafayette has Downtown Alive and a lot of those events. We have a lot of people from New Iberia and other areas go to Downtown Alive. I talked to someone a long time about this. I would like to see who's involved in the membership of Downtown Alive and see if they can incorporate New Iberia into Downtown Alive, to whereas one weekend they have Downtown Alive here, next weekend it's in New Iberia, where we can fellowship with them and be able to get some of those revenues that they be getting from Downtown Alive they've been very successful with.
So you're asking to both?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Paul, and then we'll go to Mr. Ricky.
All right, you want to know who you talk to about that?
Well, no,
it's the
I'd
Downtown
wanna-
Authority in Lafayette who kind of puts that on.
I'd like to know what you would think about us
Yeah.
getting involved.
Sure.
In
I mean,
something
that
like
goes back to kind of sharing certain things.
Right.
But, for a while we had our own identity with that. We did have some concerts for a while downtown. I think it's a good idea, certainly, and especially now. I was talking about staying local, staying here and spending your dollars. I think I think that mindset is on people's minds, and so I think we could do that. You offer that, but you also offer some kid activities during that time. You offer food trucks. You offer beverages and all that. So yeah, and change it up each time. But as far as a partner, you'd have to see if that would be financially doable.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Ricky?
Yeah, I think what David's talking about is he wants to see the quality of life continue or even expand upon in this community. I think we have a lot to sell in festivals and events and things that go on. I think where we're lacking is the communication to our local residents, how important it is to support our local fairs and festivals. I think we need to go on a communication mission to communicate with all of our residents so that they understand how these fairs and festivals and Downtown Alive events and whatnot are important to the quality of life. Because any successful community, you got to have a good solid budget, you got to have infrastructure, but they all want quality of life. And that's important. But quality of life costs money, and you have to explain it to your residents that we need to support local. We need to buy local, not only buy local, but support local and support your local events. Don't go drive down to Lafayette if you can have it here in your Iberia. It's important. The people that work hard to put on these events, and they want the people present there so that the community can prosper and they can have a good time for their families. Listen, we all want to raise our families in your Iberia, and we want a good quality of life. But we all have to be on the same page, and it's a team effort.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Thank you for that question, Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Okay, well, I can make the promise tonight that if I'm elected, I will serve out my full 4 years of being Mayor Pro Tem. Want to know if my two opponents will have that same promise.
Okay, so we'll go from left to right. We'll go with Mr. Ricky first.
Yeah, my full intentions wouldn't be to run for Mayor Pro Tem if I didn't choose to serve the full term out. I would never turn my back on a body that elected me and put me in such an important position. So my full intentions are to serve, and my full intentions are to be effective and efficient and to get things done. I'm not going to stay on the sidelines. I want to be a stakeholder. I want to be progressive, and I want to make sure this community is proud of the things we do. And I surely will not turn my back in 4 years.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Mrs. David?
Yes, for me, I came a long way. God led me into this. I didn't wake up one morning and say I wanted to be into the political thing and all of that. God led me down this path, and it was a path that was very good for me, and it opened up a lot of doors for me. And it also made a lot of people in the community look at me and make proud of me for being able to try to do a lot of things in my community. Like I said, I mentored kids in the school system for 16 years. I'm gonna continue doing that. I'm about my community. I'm not planning on leaving and going to live in Lafayette, Youngsville, or Broussard. I like where I live. I like my neighborhood. I like the people I deal with. And my goal is to make sure my kids, my grandkids, and the kids of New Iberia grow to be proud of where they're living at and maybe have a future here.
Thank you, Mr. David. Thank you for that question, Mr. Paul. This is the last question. I want to say y'all did that beautifully. That was great. So the last question will go to Mr. David first. You have 120 seconds. You are now welcome to make your closing remarks.
Okay, my closing remarks are, once again, thanking the Chamber for allowing us to do this, especially with everything we're going through right now with the coronavirus and everything. It's a blessing to be able to do that because so many things in our community have been shut down so far, like Sugarcane Festival and a lot of other things. So I appreciate you guys for allowing us to do this and let the people get a wind of who they're looking at to try to elect for office. And I want to tell you that if you elect me for Mayor Pro Tem, I've already been doing my job when I was on the council. I ran 8 years, 4 years, and then the next time unopposed. And people were proud of the job that I've done. And people always told me from other parts of the community, and I wasn't a city councilman, and Mr. Mayor, I wish you was my city councilman. Seems like you're the only one up there know what you're talking about. I don't think I'm better than anyone else, but I know one thing, when I do something, I do my homework. And my homework meaning that if I want to talk about something, I'm gonna make sure I study it and make sure that I'm coming out right with it before I do anything. And all I want to say is if you elect me for Mayor Pro Tem, I am someone that's going to be here for a long time, and I would eventually like to be your mayor. So elect David Merrill, number 91, your Mayor Pro Tem for now and the future.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Paul?
So there are two master plans that are, one's finished, one is still being worked on by the council members. And I can't wait to work with those council members in each of those districts and address the needs and the wants of those districts. So it's going to be an exciting plan that needs development, and I'm ready to put it into action. Just an example, y'all might all know the gas station on the corner of Lewis Street and Main Street. Not the best looking site forever. Some wonderful people took it upon themselves, and I was asked to be the project director for the artist. We're almost finished with the project. Looks 100% better. And now we have a small tribe of artists, young, old, black, white, that are ready to do that into the city for the next project. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know. But we're ready to do that. And that's just an example of what I can pull together with the talent of this community and what we can do in different parts of the city and make it even better. And you know, it goes back to if you make things better, if you do it yourself, it gives you pride. And then, you know, we might cure that litter habit that everybody has or something. So, you know, I think I'm the only one up here that wants to really do that and has done that kind of stuff to make a difference that you can actually see and feel and get a feeling of like, this is great, this is awesome. I want that. I can bring that to the position of Mayor Pro Tem with my fresh, new perspective and ideas for New Iberia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Ricky?
Yes, I think the city and the taxpayers and voters are faced with a critical decision in this Mayor Pro Tem race, as well as other decisions. And I think throughout this campaign, you're going to hear new ideas, fresh ideas, but we need to elect somebody that has the experience to get the job done. I have a proven track record. I've got the job done. I've worked on multiple projects. For example, when I was on the parish council, I worked with the city council to resurface Dansby Road, joint effort between the parish and the council. I've worked with the mayor and the council on a joint effort to do animal control, to provide an animal control unit to pick up. Those are just two of the ideas that I've worked together in collaboration with the city to work together. I want to continue those efforts. I'm very, very proud of the forward traction that the mayor, the current administration, and the city council has done. I want to add my energy, my experience to that mix, and it'll be a winning solution. Vote number 90, Ricky Gonsalves, on November 3rd. I humbly pray for your consideration, and experience really does make the difference.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. This concludes tonight's forum for the New Iberia City Council member at large. The forum for District Attorney of the 16th Judicial District will begin at 7:10 p.m. They have an important announcement they want me to read. It's the deadline for the 2020 census is fast approaching. It's September 30th. If you have not already done so, please take the time to complete the census form at my2020census.gov. Having everyone in Iberia Parish counted is essential and it determines federal funding for all kinds of important services, public schools, roads, emergency equipment. Each person who goes uncounted costs Louisiana $2,291 in services. As of yesterday, only 60% of Iberia Parish's population has responded, so please respond to the census. We certainly appreciate the time and effort put forth by the candidates here tonight. On behalf of the Greater Iberia Chamber of Commerce, we'd like to once again recognize our forum partners, Iberia Comprehensive Community Healthcare Center and Leadership Iberia. Again, we wish all the candidates well and want to encourage all registered voters to exercise your right to vote at this upcoming election.